Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one yet again based on one of your newer suggestions. This one having to do with a very fascinating case of a monster that literally fell from the sky. That's one of the first times I recall ever talking about something like this when it comes to the world of cryptids. Not only that, but when it was discovered, it was actually placed in a museum, and apparently this all took place in Russia. I don't recall the last time I ever talked about a cryptid there in Russia. I've talked about other videos in the past outside of that realm, but this could be the very, very first. But in any case, you're looking at a representation of it now, a drawing of it at least. It goes by several names, but the most common name associated with this fascinating monster is the Arzamassian Monster. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Arzamassian Monster. And here in a minute why it's specifically called that name. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating information associated with this very brief and one-time encounter. So here's how it goes. You have to go back to June 4th, 1719 specifically for this one-time encounter. So quite a ways back now, pretty much 300 years. There was a celebration of it just last year, in fact. And this happened at a place called Arzamas, Russia. That's why essentially it's called the Arzamassian Monster, because it took place there in Arzamas. Arzamas is a tiny town, well, not tiny now, but it must have been back then, that was started sometime in the 1500s. To give you an idea, it didn't really become a city until like 1781. So this occurred in 1719. So this was probably just a village, if at most. But somewhere over that entire village, a really heavy storm started passing by again on June 4th, 1719. And this must have been just a horrendous storm, something that just caused so much calamity all around, so much so that eventually when the storm passed, witnesses saw something that they described terrifying fall from the sky. And it pretty much just came straight from the clouds all the way dead stop into the ground itself. It seemed like it was absolutely just dead on arrival when it hit the ground altogether. Who knows? This creature may have actually been living on the brief way down, and maybe the impact of the ground itself caused it to die, or it could have been just dead the whole way. But it's still hard to surmise if this was actually something caused by the storm itself, if it was riding the storm, if it was a victim to the storm. There's just so much unanswered questions associated with this monster, but here's how it goes. Once essentially it landed, that's when people started to come around it, and then that's when they realized this was no ordinary beast. This was truly something else that they hadn't seen before. And then as far as the physical characteristics associated with it, it's this. And it was actually measured at a close distance and analyzed, again, because of its dead status. It gave a chance to people to be able to take a look at it at a really close-like manner. So it was described as being 7.5 meters long. That's really long. That's almost 25 feet, to give you an idea. It had these teeth that were very elongated as well, pike-like, if you will. They were large, they were crooked. It gave me the sense that it were almost like crocodile teeth. You know how those teeth basically come out of the sides of the mouth and then go towards the top and the bottom of the lips, if you call it those, or the lids on each side of the mouth. And so that's essentially what this thing had. But most prominent was this. It had these wings that were bat-like that stretched out on their own almost to 7 meters long, so a little bit under 23 feet long to be specific. Clearly, there's really nothing else out there that has such terrifyingly large wings. Obviously, there's a lot of birds that have wings, but I can't recall something like this large with regards to it. But even then, if there was something out there like that, the rest of it was clearly out of this world, because its legs were smooth, almost reptile-like. It had these talons at the very end. It had these fingers at the end of its wings as well. These gripping fingers, in other words, that had 4 specific fingers each. So in other words, there were the wings, and then attached at the end of those wings were the actual claws, if you call it those, or the actual fingers themselves. And then its eyes, even though they were lifeless at the time because it was dead again at the time it hit the ground itself, it still had a piercing look. Like people must have been just horrified just looking at this thing, whatever this thing was altogether. And even though it was dead, it still gave a very menacing presence. So that's essentially all the details associated with its physical characteristics. Unfortunately, the details don't exactly go into further details as to what it could have been. Like, was it a bird, or was it a dinosaur, or was it just something else completely altogether different that you and I have never seen or encountered in any other parts of the world? It just remains up in the air when it comes to all that information. But everyone that gathered around it obviously was just shocked at what occurred. They never seen anything like this there in Arzamas, Russia, probably let alone anywhere else afterward. And so when they decided to do something about it, they sent it to a location called, oh, but this is a name, it's called Kunstkamera there in St. Petersburg. This was an order given by Peter the Great himself, who is probably the most powerful man there in Russia at the time. In fact, he directly stated after this creature was encountered that, and this is his quote, "If someone finds any wonder, monster, or freak, he should immediately send it to Kunstkamera in St. Petersburg, because it's not from the devil, but from the nature." So kind of gives you an idea how they were playing this along. To them, they thought to themselves that this was going to be something that nature produced, that this wasn't from an evil location, an evil origin, like from hell or from something else created by Satan or anything like that. No, this was just another extraordinary creature that just happened to be landing right there in Arzamas, Russia. That place, by the way, that Kunstkamera, that one is actually a museum. So that would have been a great place to house this particular creature and then show it and all of its wonder to everyone else. And they took great care when it came to its carcass. In fact, they decided to put the carcass in a barrel, and then they filled it with wine. So I'm wondering if there was almost like a sense of, I think it's called what, formaldehyde. It's that kind of clear liquid that allows anything decaying to not decay. It just stays in almost a pristine condition. And I'm wondering if that what was the case was here, where the people there that gathered this creature and put it within that barrel decided to do so with such a careful manner. It makes sense, right? Whenever they did something like this. And if you're wondering like what happened to the creature itself, why it isn't on display now, why it would have been so awesome, this could have actually been the very first cryptid to have lasted for so long, hundreds of years, in that perfect condition for everyone to see today, to post pictures of, to take videos next to, that kind of stuff. If you're wondering why that's not the case, it's because of this. That barrel that was filled with wine that contained this carcass, as it was being taken all the way over to that museum, well, somehow, some way, it got lost en route. Can you believe that? It actually got lost. I have no idea how that could occur. One would think that you would have pretty clear direct route, right, between that location in Arzamas all the way to wherever the Kunstkamera Museum is located there in St. Petersburg. You would think it would be a pretty direct route, not only because of the destination, but also because there probably weren't too many towns all around that area in Russia during that time period. I mean, you would pretty much just go from point A to point B and not have anything else go along the path. But somewhere, somehow, that barrel or the crate or the cargo, the carriage, whatever it was in, actually got lost, and it was lost in history. They never were able to find anything as far as the barrel anymore, let alone the carcass. What a loss. I mean, I've had this experience as well with other past videos where I've talked about that, where like some villagers had the most extraordinary find in the world, but then they decided to eat it. Or in other cases, they decided to bury it somewhere, but there's no markings. There's nothing else in terms of an indication of where that cryptid is. Now we have this one that's actually placed in a barrel and actually created like in a preserved state, and it would have been so awesome to see today, but you can no longer see it because it's lost. It made me wonder if there's a chance that somewhere along the way, the word lost became quotations, like somebody stole it altogether and just decided to keep it to themselves, stole it for ransom purposes, stole it for selfish reasons. Maybe they wanted to sell it afterwards for a high price, something like that. Who knows? But either way, that goes as far as the existence of this creature, whatever this creature was that loosely became called the Arzamassian Monster, again, hence from the location that it was found. That's the only whereabouts we know of it today. But in any case, quite fascinating though, because again, this was something that fell from the sky. When I was reading the information too earlier, it made me wonder, like if you've seen the movie The Mist. Great movie, great novel or novella, as they call it as well. And in it, there's that storm that comes in, right? The storm of all storms, the storm of the century. And then from it, the monsters come out. And so I'm wondering if there was something like this, like just some freak occurrence, like some storm that just opened up something else it shouldn't have. And then that's where this creature got loose. And then, of course, it was dead on arrival. But still, that could explain where its origins came from. But yes, it was at least discovered there in that tiny town, taken to the museum, but it was lost along its way. But if anybody has any more information, anything else might have missed, please let me know. It's still up in the air too as to what this was. Was it another long-lost dinosaur? Was it a mysterious bird? Was it something else altogether, a different cryptid? Who knows? But if anybody has any ideas on that, then please post those comments below. Who knows, maybe sometime in the future someone will finally find that barrel. Maybe it's underneath some kind of rocks, or it's there in some river, and then finally somebody pops it open at the right time, and they'll have this creature, maybe even pristine condition, still being there to this day to examine. How great would that be now if that were ever to occur? So, all right, everybody, thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.